guys, how you doing? I just want to have a little chat about what I've noticed over the 22 years of being a driving instructor and who is more likely to pass first time, or who's got a better chance of passing first time, what I've noticed about that, patterns that I've noticed, and yeah, stuff like that basically. So it's just a kind of like chilled conversation, right? So the first thing that I'm going to say about this video is it's more likely that you are going to pass first time if when you drive, the feel of the car, the energy in the car and the feel of the car is that you can make the passenger feel safe. That is incredibly important. It doesn't matter if you scored 50 out of 50 on your theory test. It doesn't matter how many videos you've watched. It doesn't matter how much theory you've got. It matters if your passenger feels safe. Now, I'm getting old and this reference may not work, but I'm going to try and explain it. But there's a film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? And it's called Twins. And there's two twins, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is basically the one who got like the muscles and like and the brains, and he's like the perfect being. And then his brother, Danny DeVito, which is like a really small guy, he played the Penguin in Batman, right? So like you can see the difference there. So they're twins, right? And basically there's this part in the film where Arnold Schwarzenegger wants to learn how to drive. And there's this funny bit where he opens a book and he puts his finger and he just like goes like that. And he goes like that, and then he turns the page, and he goes like that, and he goes like that, and he turns the page. And Danny DeVito just goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm learning how to drive." Now, when he, and that obviously that's like impressive and everything, but when he goes out into the car, he's like, he can't drive it very well. He's terrible, right? So my point is this. Theory, yeah, you can watch these videos, you can read the books and everything, but where you're going to learn is in the car. So when I was a driving instructor, I learnt, I hear, I forget, okay? I see, I learn, which is what you're doing with me on my videos and on my channel. I see, I learn. I do, I understand, which is what my students do when they get into my car. I do, I understand. So you must get in the car. You have to. You've got to do it. Yeah, you might be able to read in the book, okay, I need to lift my clutch and keep it still and blah, blah, blah. But until you actually do that physically, yeah, you're not going to be able to understand the feeling of the car. And then after that, I added, if you add the why, yeah, then you remember forever, okay? Which is my own addition. I like the why. I'm really into the why. Like if a student comes into my car and I'm like, you need to lift the clutch up, I wouldn't just say you need to lift the clutch up. I would literally tell them why, and and then they fully get it, and they get the understanding, the knowledge, yeah. They understand it, but they also remember it for the rest of their lives because they understand the why. But that's how I teach, right? So it's really important that when you're driving with somebody, that you're able to drive in a way that they feel safe. Now, I know that when you listen to this, that if I say to you, picture somebody that you think is a good driver, you'll all be able to picture one person that you think is excellent, yeah? And then if I say to you, picture somebody that you don't think is very good at driving, let me guess that you don't feel safe in that car. Let me guess that they're driving far too quickly. Let me guess that their choices and their judgments and their risk-taking is just not correct, yeah? Because you feel unsafe. So when you go to this driving test, it is imperative that you make the examiner feel safe. And I don't mean driving slow. Driving slow is not the answer to feeling safe, because that can be dangerous. People behind may need to overtake you at speed, which puts you, the oncoming person, and the person who's overtaking you in danger. Yes, you might say to your driving instructor, "Oh, he's overtaking me, he's an idiot." Yeah, I get that. But the thing is, not always, right? Because obviously some people overtake because they are literally an idiot, obviously. But if we're driving at 18 miles an hour in a 30 for no reason, there's no hazards, it's a clear road, and you're doing 18, which is pretty standard for a learner who's worried, I get that, of course, but not on your driving test. Yeah, but if you're still doing 18 and a 30 on your driving test, I'm afraid you're going to fail. It's far too slow. I've had people fail for that over the years because they go into their test and they're like, right, I'm going to look really careful today. I'm going to drive really, really slow because that's the answer. No, it's not. It's not, guys. Yeah, you need to pick the safe speed limit for the conditions of the road. If there's loads of parked cars around, if there's loads of pedestrians around, if there's loads of risk around, danger around, of course, you're going to go as slow as you need to go. You might even do 1 mile an hour, depending on the situation. But if there's no hazards, then you need to make progress. You need to do the speed limit. We need to try and make the road flow. Okay. So it is vitally important that the feeling of the car is feeling safe. The passenger feels safe. The passenger could possibly fall asleep if they wanted to because they feel that safe. I've made videos about that before. It's really important. So it's not really about, I've got 50 out of 50 on my theory. Look, that's impressive. I love that. Of course I do. Yeah, of course. I've noticed a pattern over the years. Now, this is a loose pattern, and what I'm about to say isn't set in stone or solid. But I've just noticed over the years, there's a pattern of people who are excellent at driving, are good at playing an instrument, and they're good at languages. They may be bilingual, or they can speak another language well. Now, please don't put yourself out of the box. Like, obviously, if somebody gets in my car and I'm like, wow, you're a total natural, wow, I will normally say to somebody, do you play an instrument? Do you talk a different language? And obviously sometimes they say no, and I'm like, I think you should try. Because there is like definitely a pattern that I've noticed, over that time. So please don't set this in stone when I say stuff like this, just a pattern that I've noticed, okay? Also, I've noticed that again, not set in stone, please don't get me wrong, but I have noticed that very super ridiculously intelligent people sometimes can struggle with anxiety. Not always, please don't take this out of context, right? But some extremely intelligent people, of course, will come into my car and be brilliant. But I have noticed a pattern that if they have got extremely high up jobs, they can suffer with anxiety. They're unable to see the grey in the driving. They can, if things go wrong, they can go to pieces. And there's more of a black and white way of learning. And it's difficult to sometimes teach the grey because there is a lot of grey, isn't there, in driving? Have you noticed? Yeah. Have you seen my silly video where I'm like, you must never mount the curb, and then it cuts. You need to mount the curb here. Like there's just so, like mounting the curb, for example, on your driving test is going to make you fail. You're not allowed to go up the curb, but if there's an ambulance or there's like someone moving house and there's a truck open, then you might have to mount the curb. Or if there's a blue lights, you might have to mount the curb. See, there's a grey area there. And you have to kind of like think on your feet, like, how can I keep the traffic moving? It's like, you must never go over the round disc of the roundabout. But if that's the only choice because there's gridlock traffic everywhere, then you sometimes need to. I've made a video about that. Yeah, when can you and can't you go over the round disc of a mini roundabout? Normally, no, makes you fail your test. But there's a grey area. Sometimes you're gonna have to go over it. Right? So I have noticed that sometimes super intelligent people find it difficult not to understand the greys. Okay. Now I've released a video also about teaching people with autism, teaching people with ADHD, dyspraxia, all those things. Yeah. So obviously, I shouldn't say the word obviously because you might not know, but like somebody with autism is I love teaching people with autism because there's loads of rules. You can kind of like teach the rules, but again, the grey areas, we need to think about those and have strategies for that. So yeah, what I'm trying to get across in this video is the feeling. It's about creating the feeling of safety in the car. You are so much more likely to pass if the examiner feels safe, like all the choices for speed are correct for the conditions of the road, all your judgments are right. Now, to get that right, clearly, you're going to need to have a lot of practice in the car and your theory needs to be good. Because if you know how a crossroads works in theory and then you go and do it, then you're going to understand as well. So you're going to learn by seeing it, reading it, doing all the theory, and then you're going to understand it when you do it. Yeah. So you can't just learn it from YouTube. You can't just learn it from a book. You have to go and sit with somebody and do it who's patient with you. Yeah. So it's about creating the feeling in the car. All right. So I think that's what I wanted to do with this lesson today. When I think that somebody is excellent, I don't work very hard. Yeah. So, and what I mean by that is I'm not sat there being lazy. I will just sit there and be like, I don't need to help with this crossroads. I don't need to help with the steering here. I don't need to go for the brake. I can feel myself not being necessary. And that is extremely important. When you go to your driving test, you do not want to need your driving instructor. You do not want to need the accompanying driver. That's when you're not ready for your driving test. I know somebody's ready for their driving test when I can feel that I'm not necessary. Yeah. I'm necessary for a long time, and then there comes a point where I'm like, I'm not necessary. Bye. Yeah, it's been great and everything, and we've had a right laugh, but I'm not necessary. Kick me out the car, love. Yeah. Or mate, kick me out the car. Stop paying me. Get me out of here. You are absolutely brilliant. You do not need me. You are independent. You don't need help anymore. And I can feel that, right? If I'm going to cancel somebody's test, it's because I'm necessary. I'm so necessary. I'm sat there, maybe doing a mock test thinking, is this person ready for their test? And I'm like, nah, I'm necessary. I'm necessary for checking the mirrors. I'm necessary for checking the surroundings. I'm necessary for the risks here. I'm necessary for the rules. They haven't got the rules yet. I'm necessary. I'm necessary. I'm necessary. If I'm sat with somebody on a mock test and I'm like, oh, they've got this. Oh, they've got that. Oh my God, that's brilliant. Yes, that's so good. Like, they don't need me. I'm so not necessary. I'm like sat there like metaphorically like drinking like a pina colada, you know. It's just like not necessary. And that's where you want to be. You want to make your accompanying driver not necessary. If I hear stories from my students, they're like, yeah, I've been out with my mum and dad and they're coming up to their test. And like, yeah, we just drive around now. We just have like the music on casually, like softly. We just drive around. I just give my brother a lift to school. I just do the shopping. You know, there's no stories anymore of like, oh my gosh, this happened. We nearly crashed. It was a nightmare. That's not happening anymore. They're just coming into the car going, yeah, I drove to like a city that's like quite far out on the A roads. You're not allowed on the motorway. Don't forget, you're not allowed on the motorway without a driving instructor at this stage, okay? But they've driven somewhere really far away on A roads, and they just like, yeah, they just report it. Oh yeah, we did that, and I'm like, cool. And then the parent is feeling safe. The parent is feeling like comfortable, right? So what this is about is have enough lessons to be able to know the rules, do the theory, make sure that you've got all of that as well. Team it up. Yes, you have to know the theory. Yes, you've got to do it. So theory, YouTube videos or whatever you want to do, yeah? But you also need to be in the car. You've got to do both. And then with those two things together, you are going to then be able to place it all together and have a feeling of safety. And then your passenger will be like, yeah, they're great. I often have the analogy that if you go to somebody's house and use their bathroom, when you walk into the bathroom, you're secretly hoping that the bathroom is in a good state, right? You know what I mean? Like, you can't help it. Even if you love the person that you've gone to their house, like you kind of think, oh, I hope the toilet looks all right, yeah? But when you drive with somebody, it's almost the same thing. Oh, I hope this person's going to make me feel safe. Yeah, you can't help it. You judge somebody who drives you around. I was with a student recently, and we went on the motorway together. So I taught him how to drive. He's got his license, and we went on the motorway, and it was really lovely to see him. Really nice. And I was like, oh, how's it all going? And he was like, yeah, all my friends are like driving now. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. I was like, is there any good ones and bad ones? And he's like, yeah, you know, most of them are really good, but there's this one girl, and she's like really scary. I've only been in her car once and I will never go in her car again. And I was like, really? What is that about then? What's going on with her? I didn't teach her to drive, by the way. All right. Don't know this person. But anyway, I said, why? Why is it scary? And he was like, because she just doesn't take any responsibility. He was like, there's parked cars, like when we were together, there was parked cars down the road, and then she just, like somebody was coming through the gap, and then she just went really fast towards them, like kind of emergency stopped, and then gave them a really hard time, was putting her arms up and being like, oh, rah, rah, no, yeah. But it was, and he said it was totally her fault. Like we should never have been going down there. And like and I said to him, that's really interesting, because there must be some shift, because a learner would never do that in their driving lessons. Never. They would never do that on driving tests. They would never have that attitude. Where does that come from? They're obviously able to control it on their driving lessons or with the driving examiner. But something happens when they pass their test that they're just like, okay, I don't need to control that part of me anymore. I can let that part of me go. I can use my horn. I can tell, and apparently she's doing that as well. She's horning everyone. Like, where does that come from? Where does that attitude come from? Like, if you did that on your driving lessons or on your test, you'd certainly fail your driving test. That's attitude. That would go down as in a little box like attitude to driving, or like, no chance. Like, so. No, basically. So when you sit with people like this and they do that, it's not impressive. Like, it really isn't impressive. Like, I don't understand why the person sits there and thinks that could look cool. Everybody thinks it's really bad. Like, there isn't a person who leaves the car and goes, oh, that was well cool, like we got into a situation and my driver went mad at the other person. We made a mistake, yeah, but she went down there and she just went mental at the other person and just went. Nobody does that. They go out of the car and they report it to their friends like, don't want to sit in that person's car anymore. It doesn't look cool. Don't know where it comes from. But it still boils down to the fact that you want people to make you feel safe when you're driving. If you've got a choice of having a lift from somebody who makes you feel safe and somebody who doesn't, clearly you're going to go in the car with the person who makes you feel safe. Have enough experience, have enough practice, do the theory, get in the car, learn, practice as much as possible basically, so you can have a good feel to your drive and it feels really safe and nice and lovely. I've put in that generalisation about people who play an instrument. It's a pattern that I've noticed. It isn't. If you can't do that, please don't think I can't drive. Like, it's fine. Of course you can. Like, it's fine. I can't play an instrument, and I can't talk a different language. So I'm living proof of like, yeah, but I'm really good at like with my hands. Very, very good with my hands. I can make really good like pottery and stuff. So, and I'm very artistic. Yeah. So there's something in me where I can make things, yeah, so I have got that hand-to-eye coordination. Anyway, I've got to go. I've got another school run to do. All right, so I hope this has been helpful to you today, a little bit of information for you, just a chatty video. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one.